just because these things, pump and they're not done yet, does not mean that they're scams. It means that people believe in the vision and they're willing to bet their hard-earned money on that vision.
Hello and welcome to Crypto Interviews. My name is Claudio and this is Hashoshi, the channel where I do crypto news, reviews, tutorials, and interviews. And joining me today once again for the fourth time, I think it is, definitely the fourth time, is Forrest, who's got the YouTube channel of Hashoshi, a very technical channel. He focuses on Cardano, but he also talks about other cryptocurrencies like Elrond. He even talks about Polkadot sometimes too, which, this is a channel favorite when it comes to Polkadot, right? Today he's actually joining to talk about Cardano, and we're going to be going in depth to try to understand what is Cardano really all about, because we know like at a high level what Cardano is all about on this channel. Maybe some of you know more, but we don't know the details, and Forrest actually knows that, so hopefully he's going to be able to share that with us. So thank you very much for joining, Forrest. And if you just want to maybe summarize what is Cardano, what does it actually mean for a new person who's hearing about Cardano for the first time? I'm sure there aren't any new people that don't know about it, but just in case.
Yeah, I mean, I would say at a high level, Cardano really represents one of the sort of third wave uh, cryptocurrency platforms or blockchain platforms on which smart contracts and other decentralized application type of use cases, right, could be built. Fundamentally, Cardano took a very different approach than, say, Ethereum. First of all, because they started with the idea that they were going to build something that was more scalable using proof of stake, for example, that they were going to formally verify or basically peer review the core code bases that compose the network. And, I think that some of the challenge that they've seen is obviously that this process of formal verification, building things from scratch, taking very little from elsewhere, has rendered it, you know, a slower process, right? So I think a lot of people get frustrated because features didn't come out as fast as they thought. First it was staking and delegation, then it's, the upgrades for multi-asset, now it's smart contracts. But I think it's fundamentally has a lot of really good work and a lot of good technical foundation to be built from in the future.
Yeah, so that's actually cool. So I know that Cardano has actually was meant to release in different, well, it is meant to release in different phases as per the roadmap. We've got the, I forgot the name of the very first phase, but I know the second one is Shelley, which is the proof of stake. And then the third phase, which is Goguen, is for smart contracts, right? So
Hmm.
that means that it's going to allow applications to build on, or dApps to build on Cardano, right? Now, the
Yeah.
question is, in terms of development, because I know you've been following this closely, I personally haven't. How long do you think is left before Goguen is actually going to get released?
Yeah. So, after Shelley brought proof of stake, staking and delegation in general for people, that was sort of the first place where people were like, okay, well, I can really interact with the Cardano network in a meaningful way. I can create a stake pool to participate in actually minting blocks on the network. I can delegate my stake to a stake pool to play my part as an individual holder in the governance of it. And then the focus shifted towards Goguen, which is named after a very renowned computer scientist in history. And Goguen was broken into multiple phases. And so right now we're in the final phase of release for Goguen. And what you're seeing now with which is called the Alonzo fork, by the way. And what we're seeing now is the track towards public testnet for smart contract functionality, which will be the place where a lot of the projects that have said we're going to be building DeFi or XYZ dApps on Cardano can actually now put their test or sort of alpha versions of their code base for people to interact with on the Cardano network in a public test net. So that should be happening here in the next couple of weeks because there's private test nets happening to make sure there's no showstopper bugs, to make sure there's no unpredicted sort of economic issues, just to check that all the stuff that they've been building for the last several years is working together with the core framework for Ouroboros consensus, which is the sort of the proof of stake and consensus layer, the multi-asset ledger that they released recently, which has seen projects pop up releasing NFTs on Cardano. And so that, if you had to ask me, is one of the coolest aspects of the Cardano blockchain is that there's already ways to get utility out of the network without needing smart contracts yet. And as smart contracts come, you're really going to see the vision come to fruition, and then we'll be able to tell, is this legit? Will people really use this, or is there more work that's required? I think that's the really cool thing about where we're at right now.
Okay, so if I understand this correctly, and I'm not sure if you're following Polkadot very closely, but with Polkadot, there's the Roku testnet where different projects deploy their potential parachains because we don't know if they're going to bond as a parachain yet. They're going to take part in an auction,
Yeah.
right? So am I right in saying that Cardano is at that stage right now where dApps can deploy their testnets on their get tested and then move on to mainnet once Goguen goes live, right? Is this the stage that it's currently at?
We're coming to that now. I think there's probably going to be wrap up on private testing in the near future, a couple weeks maybe, maximum about a month. And then we're going to see the actual public testnet stuff running, where you will get those tests of active decentralized application projects that are saying we're going to be live on mainnet. And that, I think, is really going to be the place where we see what Cardano is made of. And we will also see what the market reaction is to this, because this has been something, if you look at what critics say about Cardano, it has this huge market cap and it doesn't have smart contracts.
Yeah.
How can this be?
It's on Coinbase, it's on many exchanges, it has a lot of liquidity.
Yeah,
and listen, a huge community, right?
A big community, but the way that I look at it is this: that criticism is in fact valid, right? It isn't done, but no one claims that it's done. So let's put it that way. Well, I'm not going to say no one. No one that really knows what's going on claims it's done. But the markets are just as much about belief in the way something is being built that might not be fully built yet, rather than just about what is currently built. And if you look at Ethereum's price, obviously we're in this like big blow up of the markets right now as we speak. But if you look at Ether up until just recently, so like up until the first week of May, you see Ether at prices that are totally not indicative of how scalable and how effective Ethereum is right now at doing what it's supposed to do. There's congestion, there's high fees, and I love Ethereum. I use Ethereum probably the most out of any protocol.
Yeah.
But it has issues. And so people are buying Ether right now in anticipation of EIP 1559, the deflationary element of Ether in the future. They're buying based on a potentially accelerated timeline for Ethereum 2.0. These are speculative things that they're thinking about. And so I would like people to apply that same logic to something like Cardano or to Polkadot or to all these other projects that have grand visions, talented technical teams that just haven't gotten all the way there yet. Because just because these things, pump and they're not done yet does not mean that they're scams. It means that people believe in the vision and they're willing to bet their hard-earned money on that vision. And so that's kind of the way that I see it.
No, absolutely. Thanks for sharing that. No, that's awesome. And it does kind of explain the situation that we're in at the moment and as to the reason as to why the ADA coin is doing so well in terms of price, right? But now to move on to the other topic, which is Shelley, right? This has been released for quite some time now, right? So proof of stake is there, validators are running, right? So you can actually stake on a node. Now, the question is, how does that work? And could you please elaborate a little bit? And also in the sense of return on your investment, what's the APY at the moment on average? And are the different validators charging different commissions like we're seeing with Polkadot, for example? Or how does that bit work? Or is it like all evenly distributed regardless of which validator you stake with?
Yeah, so I can give a little bit of background there. So generally, Shelley is a proof of stake environment, and you essentially have two main personas. You've got stake pools, which are basically the actual block makers in the network. They are the delegates, if you will. And then you have delegators, which would be average holders who want to earn yield and participate, but maybe don't want to run infrastructure to actually facilitate the minting of blocks. So each stake pool has a saturation level, which is the amount of ADA that's been delegated to them. And that saturation is just one of the components that goes into your likelihood of minting a block and doing your part in the network. And so the proof of stake consensus mechanism has been built to sort of uh, avoid the normal centralizing factors in proof of stake, which is that the wealthiest become the most powerful. And that's why you have that saturation point, right? Where a stake pool that gets delegation over the saturation point, it actually hurts the pool, right? It actually, it doesn't necessarily hurt the pool. It hurts the pool in the regard that if they're not saying to their delegators, hey, you're not going to get as many rewards if you're, delegating to my oversaturated pool, go to a smaller pool, then maybe the public says, hey, why aren't you telling people to move their stake or to move their delegation? So it sort of mixes technical and sort of socioeconomic and psychological elements to make the protocol more more prone towards decentralization. The truth is, though, you might read online that it's 100% decentralized. You hear that in I was reading Gavin Wood's Medium article about Polkadot recently, and
Yeah.
he used the word complete decentralization. These types of things are talked about all the time because they sound good,
Yeah.
but I want people to realize that that is not the measure of how good a blockchain network is, because there is no such thing as 100% totality decentralization, because
Yeah.
there's always centralizing forces. So just be mindful of that, because it becomes a contentious thing for people when they're looking at projects, like how it's not 100% decentralized. That's true, but that's also not bad.
Yeah.
For Cardano, the goal has been, let's put the block making completely in the hands of the general public. And to them, that is, we are decentralized. But you'll see people that have multiple pools.
Yeah.
So you'll say maybe they have more weight in the network than somebody else. And that's just part of the game, right?
So if
Um,
I understand that correctly, sorry to interrupt you, just
that's
to
okay.
kind of get this clear. So you're saying that if you're a validator and you've got a staking pool, like basically nominators delegating to your pool, right? If it grows
Hmm.
too large, then you're not going to be able to take advantage of the same kind of reward as you'd expect, right? There's a limit. That's what you're saying. There's a threshold that you're going to reach. So these same people then set up multiple pools and ask the community to basically stake on those other pools in order to
Yeah.
maximize the returns, right? So there is a way around that in a way.
Yeah. But I think the good thing is that, I mean, it's clever because creating multiple pools, there's nothing really illegal about that. There are
Exactly.
people who get angry about people who do that, but I think it's fair to an extent.
Yeah.
The the cool thing about this, though, is that you as a delegator have more control now. Because if you say, hey, I don't like the fact that you have multiple pools, you have full control and can instantly remove your delegation and move it somewhere else. And that saturation point is a moving target as well, which can be used to further incent the distribution of ADA across different stake pools. So I think the way that they economically structured this is great. And secondly, I also think that if you look at some of the really clean implementations of proof of stake, like Algorand's, for example, they have a healthy dose of randomization in their protocol to make it more fair, to insulate the network from the wealth problem. And I think that's another thing that you see in something like Cardano's or Boros proof of stake that's valuable.
No, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. It's awesome because, to be honest, the community is interested to learn how this staking mechanism works better, right?
Hmm.
Now, a lot of people are mature when it comes to that because there's just so much
Yeah.
information out there now. It's not like back in 2017 and 2018 when you were lacking that information. You're watching
Yeah.
5, 6 YouTubers to try and learn. But yeah,
Hmm.
definitely, there's a ton of info out there. All these Medium articles that we've got and everything.
I
Now,
also
tell me,
I
tell me.
also realized I forgot to answer your second question.
Yeah, with regards to the
Yeah.
commission, because that's
Yeah.
one which is actually quite nasty in a way for the Polkadot ecosystem and Kusama, because I know some people that are staking Kusama and they're constantly having to switch those
To move.
validators just because the commission's constantly changing, right? So it's not
Hmm.
not really worth it. They can't maximize their ROI if they keep it on one. So how does that
Yeah.
actually
So I think there is a parameter that can be set in terms of the reward rate for your stake pool in Cardano. It's very transparent, right? And there was actually an issue recently where someone changed their reward rate like kind of surreptitiously, and there was a sort of an outcry about that lack of transparency. Um, and so people move their delegation. And so that issue can still happen, but I think it's far less prevalent. The rewards rate that I've seen most often between 5 and 7%, which, some people that are used to yield farming where you're getting hundreds of percents gains, or APYs, might not seem like much, but I think the hands-off element of it, where you literally set it and forget it, it's a pretty good return. That, of course, also can change depending on network conditions. But I think that the cool thing about this is that it is very easy to do. My recommendation is folks that want to participate in staking is to just go and download the Yoroi, Yoroi wallet. It's a mobile wallet, fantastic. You move your ADA over there, and then it has an interface for you to delegate your ADA to pools, and it lets you browse and see who offers the most reward rate, who's unsaturated, who's saturated. It's a really easy place to go. And actually, very soon, I'm about to launch a stake pool as well. So keep an eye out for me.
Cool. So yeah, if you hold ADA, check out Hashoshi's channel because he's definitely going to announce it there.
Yes, exactly.
Over crypto over coffee, no?
Yes, the go-to my Saturday
I really
show,
like those
man.
episodes. They're cool. Yeah,
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
no worries. Yeah, so now let's move on to the next topic of Cardano, which is with regards to the dApps. So what projects are actually planning to build on Cardano so far? I'm sure there's some kind of a waiting queue, or you've been saying earlier that they're already testing at the moment. So which ones are actually ready to basically go live together when Goguen goes live?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're gonna have to do some heavy, programming and coding right when the test nets go live. They can start to do some sandbox stuff now. But a couple of notable ones are in the DeFi space. One of them, I think, that just has a really high quality team, a great vision, is liquid finance in the DeFi space. Another one would be Sunday Swap, which you can probably imagine is similar to something like
Uniswap.
a Uniswap, money market type of thing. Those are a couple of notables. There are actually quite a few projects that have started to come up. So many, in fact, that it's becoming a challenge for people to sift through all of them and figure out, hey, which ones are kind of taking advantage of the hype, which ones are real.
Yeah.
So I would take, into account the age of the project, how transparent they are, whether they're running token sales early before they have to, little things like that. So just, be mindful. Just because it's a project on Cardano doesn't mean that it's great and that the token's going to be valuable. So just be careful there. But I think the best place to engage is on on Twitter with them, and you can really get an idea of how active they are, how engaged they are with the community, and how the community in Cardano was actually very good at sort of self-policing these types of things. Seeing how the community reacts, that's the best way to go in regards to finding good projects. But there are tons. I could not possibly list them all here.
Yeah, for sure. No, and one of the things that maybe you could mention is like with Polkadot, there's a place where people can start researching from, and that's polkaproject.com. It's an open source website. Anybody can list anything there. However, there are different tabs like for DeFi, for NFTs, for gaming, and for substrate based. And I always tell people the key is the substrate based ones. Look for those, filter by those, check them out, and start researching based on those because those are usually the most legit ones. However, there are many that use names like Polka Train, Polka Rocket, Polka whatever, everything Polka. And the Polkadot team are actually getting annoyed with that. And they're like, just be careful with these guys because they're just basically trying to take advantage of that hype train. So I'm assuming they're going to be ones like Cardo Train, Cardo Rocket, anything that starts with Cardo from Cardano, which is probably going to follow.
Yeah.
So which website do you recommend people to check out for researching these kind of projects just to narrow them down and stuff? There has to be something out there which contains all this information, right?
Yeah, and it might just be a gap in my knowledge. I don't know of a site like that, sort of Polka project site for Cardano. There might actually be one, and folks in the comments can keep me honest here. I still think that the best place to do that due diligence is to go and follow some of the bigger Cardano accounts, the active accounts, like even the sort of the founder, if you will, of Cardano, Charles Hoskinson's often shouting out projects that he thinks are valuable. And of course, you know, there's some due diligence that goes into that.
Yeah.
But there are a ton of people out there. People can also reach out to me on Twitter at Hashoshi4 because I'm happy to connect you with the right people to ask that are even more connected in the Cardano world than I am in regards to what projects are out there and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, I can't imagine how busy you must be on Twitter though, because even like my Twitter account has gone over 2,400 followers, and I'm getting a lot of DMs. So I'm assuming you must be like spammed with the number of DMs.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy right now, but I think it's just because there are a lot of people in the space that
Yeah,
that need that want to talk, first of all, that want to share information. And I appreciate that immensely because I learn a ton from the
yeah,
people who interact with me because I'm one guy. I can only learn so much stuff on my own. I only have 24
exactly.
hours in the day. But also people want to get information that I know it's a great exchange, and Twitter's a great place for that.
Yeah, no, I agree. And sometimes they need help, and you could act like tech support or customer support for Cardano, like I do for Polkadot.eco
I try to.
sometimes. Yeah, yeah. No, it's awesome. And that's how
Yeah,
you learn as well, because sometimes you may not know the answer. Like most of the time, you probably not know the answer to some of the questions that they'd ask. So you have to go back and ask maybe the admin or the ambassador, or tell them to go and talk to those and try to get help. So that's how you end up learning more as well. And then of course you can
yeah,
cover that information in videos later on, which could hopefully help other people. So it works both ways if you think about it,
exactly.
right? Now, thank you for that. So now probably the final point that I want to talk about when it comes to Cardano is what do you think about the future of Cardano going, like, say, maybe one, or I know it's hard to estimate, like to go too forward in the future and be thinking like what's going to happen to Cardano in 3 or 4 years from now, because the crypto space is just too volatile and things move very rapidly, right? But how do you see
Hmm.
Cardano maybe in 1 year time in terms of the speed that they worked in terms of development? Because they did take quite a long time, but again, we're techies, so we understand that there are bugs, code needs to be tested. You can't just go and deploy, rush and deploy, and then mess up, and then the whole thing crashes and everyone's
Yeah.
annoyed. So how long do you think, how successful do you think Cardano could potentially become in the way that they're moving in terms of development? And now that they've got all these competitors, I wouldn't really say competitors, because at the end of the day they can be interoperable. So we've got Polkadot, we've got Cosmos, we've got Solana as well, and probably others as well, which I'm not sure of. How do you see them do against these kind of ecosystems? And do you think they're going to struggle, or will they work independently? How do you see that?
Listen, I think that after smart contracts go live, which I would estimate probably in mainnet towards August, if I had to be candid, I think what you're going to see is likely a really initial critical mass of decentralized applications show up in the Cardano space. And then you're going to see this huge sort of like singularity event of developer tooling, discussion about now turning over more governance functions to the community and all that sort of thing. So it'll be like the finishing touches. You're also going to see the grants program continue to be really important, where you try and incubate the sort of the powerful next gen dApp use cases that people are looking to build, which has already started. And I think if what success looks like for Cardano within the next year is really how can they get this sort of flywheel going where you have this like self-feeding success loop, which is the first few dApps need to bring in the users and get the users engaged. Like DeFi needs to have good total value locked. NFTs need to be, transferable. People need to show the scalable nature of the core model behind Cardano. And then that will bring more developers in to build more things because they want users to use it. And then as more developers build dApps on Cardano, more users come, and you get this like cyclical nature of more dApps, more users brings more dApps, and then more users, and it just keeps going. That's how you build what Ethereum has built. Ethereum has built what they have built because they enabled developers to build cool things that attract users, which attract more developers. And now they're so powerful, as a brand, even because of that fact. And that's what other projects need to be doing to be successful. And I think if Cardano can do that, then they can, hold a place in the interoperable future.
No, absolutely. Those are really good words. Thank you for sharing that. And we'll have to keep an eye out and see how things progress, of course,
Hmm.
because at the end of the day, we all want the whole crypto space as a whole to win and not one particular project. We don't want to see projects being singled out or left out or things like that, right? We want everyone to succeed as long as they're building legit tech, legit
Yeah.
product, and they're helping the community. Because of course, as we all know, there are many scams out there, and you do have to be very careful. And this is pretty much it. Just try to educate yourself as much as possible and do as much research as possible. Forrest, thank you very much for joining.
Thank you.
Do you have any last words for the community before we end this video?
I mean, I think my last words would be, enjoy the time that we're in right now. Enjoy the fact that as opposed to 2017, even 2013, prior cycles, if you will, we didn't have the maturity that we have now in the markets. And I know that there are scary times, right? Like right now where the markets have sold off a lot, but just remember the impactful nature of the tech that's being built here. And if you believe in that, then I think that your fears can be abated when the markets kind of turn for the worse for a period of time.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you very much for joining, and
Thank
I'll
you.
see you again in the future. And as always, do check out Hashoshi's YouTube channel in the pinned comment of the video. And of course, if you have any questions, any sort of comments to leave, please do so in the comment section. Thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.